Welcome to Denver Theory Lab.
Denver Theory Lab? Okay.
Denver Theory Lab. Let's do it.
Welcome to Denver Theory Lab. I'm Jesse.
And I'm Kyle.
Where we aim to investigate and explore theoretical and practical ideas, conspiracies, events, and practices from an objective point of view to expand our range of thinking. To support us, you guys can make donations to Denver Theory Lab on PayPal at Denver Theory Lab, and you can contact us on Facebook, Instagram, or email us at denvertheorylab@gmail.com. Please send us any questions, comments, or suggestions. We are back again with another episode. Kyle has some very interesting topics today. What do we got?
Well, we've got a few things on the list. Tartaria, mud flood, the cult of Saturn, Saturn bankers, the worship of Saturnalia. And, we'll see if we even get to all of it, but it's been a couple of weeks since we sat down.
Yeah, we did the live episode at Karma House. Just finally got done finishing editing all of that. There's a lot of material, a lot of great people were involved, and hopefully we can do that again in the near future.
Yeah, it was really nice getting to sit down with guests and, learn more from them. And definitely hope to have more folks on in the future and continue to get feedback from others to give us lots of new things to look into. There's been a few big things in the news, maybe worth a little mention. They've the tariffs just going haywire again. What the courts have said the tariffs are not legal. So from what I've read, the tariffs that have been in place for months now they're no longer valid. So really it's just making just a nightmare for companies to just try to navigate and figure out.
What do you mean they're no longer valid?
The tariffs that they had in place for months, there were already challenges in the court that different individuals have brought forth in the court to say, hey, these tariffs weren't done in a legal way. This isn't right. And the courts agreed with one of those challenges. So now the tariffs that have been in place for months, no longer valid. So
does that mean everybody gets refunded on their tariffs that they've paid?
Probably not. I doubt that. But, I think it's, from
not
what I've read, it's making a
come back into our pockets by any means. They
not
just
at all.
Keep that shit.
As a matter of fact, it's probably going to make things cost even more. Because it's just a logistical nightmare for companies to try to navigate and figure out.
Usually the inflation, they adjust for inflation, and then when it does come back down, they just leave it right where it's at.
Yep. And
we're still stuck with the same high prices regardless.
Right. But from what I've seen, this is just there's some boats shipping containers there at the major ports there in California and other spots around the country where they've been sitting for months and haven't been able to get them through because of complications with figuring out what is owed. What are the duties on these items or the things coming in, because it's been so one day one thing, the next day another thing. So I think probably when it comes to international trade and just getting things into the country, whether there's going to be tariffs or not tariffs or higher tariffs or lower tariffs, the thing that's probably needed is just it needs to just stay one way so companies can figure out what the system is. To be able to work with.
What was the idea behind the tariffs supposedly in the first place? To get a more fair trade position for the United States, or?
Yeah. From what I understand, to either, for the most part, to get a more fair trade position for the United States, and then with Canada and Mexico, with a few countries, it's been about, hey, we want you to do X, Y, Z. So we want you to focus on cracking down on fentanyl because it's coming into this country.
No, they're just using it as a token to
of saying if you
start the conversation about this is what we want you to do, or we're going to tax the shit out of you.
right. You know, you could say, hey, we know this is a byproduct of our trade with you. This is coming into our country, so we want to see more effort on your part to stop this from being smuggled out of yours. But in any sense, it's just making things not good for the economy. And from the signs I've seen online, most of the articles I can find seem to point to, it looks like we are headed toward, or very likely headed toward a recession.
Well, yeah. I mean, yeah, I don't see any doubt in that.
Right? No. And then the other big piece of news that I think's been everywhere is everybody's talking about Trump's health. He's got these spots on his hand. He's got the swollen ankles. He was pictured recently. It was a weird smile. It was a smile that he hasn't done before, just much more toothy smile. And one of his eyes appeared to be more closed than the other eye. Some of the speculation is saying they think he had a stroke.
Possibly, if he's shown by palsy.
Yeah. Well, there's, the Simpsons famously predicted that he would die in office.
Oh, yeah, well, I put some, not on the agenda, but I'll find them here in a second. There's something I saw that showed tendencies or similarities in people that have shown dementia. And it was just like his posture was a really big one where they have a tendency to like lean forward.
Yeah.
Kind of like he does.
Mm-hmm. Well, but, being demented is not disqualifying for the presidency, of course. You can be demented. You just have to have a pulse.
One of the Simpsons predictions that I found is September 23rd, 2025, Trump and alien truth expose. So the Simpsons predict that there's going to be an expose on the truth about aliens and America's stance on that. Also, September 29th, 2025, Donald Trump will die of a heart attack on The Simpsons. It's already happened. So I don't know what their batting average is on The Simpsons, but they've got more than just coincidence going for them.
Trump's a figure who there's a lot of ways that man could die that it would just be like dynamite.
They'd probably just call it a heart attack no matter what happens.
Well, I feel like a heart attack is one of the ways he could die that would be the least explosive. It's something people would believe. People see his figure, you see his diet. People go on Air Force One, they eat Big Macs. But I've heard. I was listening to a guy on the Patrick Bet David podcast over the weekend who what he does for work is he just works in the insurance industry. So his whole line of work is to be able to figure out, statistically speaking, when someone will die. And he made the prediction that he thinks Trump will live to 90, to at least into his 90s. Pretty much basing it on the fact that, hey, look at every president from the 20th century and every president from the last 50 years. Every president that wasn't shot has made it at least until age 90, and what Jimmy Carter made it to 100.
Yeah, that's fair.
And lifespans.
I also think that any number of years you live beyond the average lifespan has a lot to do with how much money you've got too.
Yeah. Well, he's got that.
How much care or aftercare can you get?
Yeah.
For your longevity. Another Simpsons prediction: the Taj Mahal becomes destroyed by a lightning strike on October 23rd of 2025, which is interesting because we believe that there's certain weather phenomena that could be created by the government or some sort of agency or technology now, and I'm wondering. Is it going to be a real lightning strike? Is it going to be, I don't know.
If lightning were to take out something or even significantly damage the Taj Mahal, that would be world news. People would think that's a sign from God. For a big, magnificent stone building like that damaged by lightning.
Yeah. Ooh, I wonder, do we have something to check in on for some of the other predictions? Okay, so I think we left off August 26th, worldwide deep state trial. Simulation leaks may claim it mirrors reality too closely. We already covered that one? I think we talked about it.
We talked about it, but I don't think we found anything that seemed to mirror that one.
Let's see if something actually happened. Also, September 9th, Pope makes an unexpected statement about non-human souls.
Well, that one's coming up. So we're September 1st right now. You know, that prediction and it would seem to go pretty hand in hand with the Simpsons one for
The
a
Taj
UFO
Mahal-
announcement.
Yeah, UFO announcement. September 23rd, surge in occult interest as a rare planetary alignment occurs.
I think a surge in occult interest has been happening for some time now.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's really more people just turning away from traditional religion, and in doing so, they're looking into old ways of how people have found spiritual connections in the past. So, but all that gets labeled as a cult. Anything that doesn't go through the mainstream,
Well, everything's secular that's not from the church.
right? Right.
August 26th, worldwide deep state trial. Simulation leaks may claim it mirrors reality too closely.
Well, you know, in a way, this one kind of is already happening. If you think about the contract that Palantir has. Oh, this makes me think, actually. Now I know what this makes me think of. So the prediction was worldwide deep state trial. Simulation leaks. Many claim it mirrors reality too closely. So, you know, that one's talking about, it sounds like someone making a Matrix-like game or a Matrix-like system. But we do have a deep state AI system and computer system being constructed right now by Palantir that's combining all the government data. And one interesting piece of news I saw with that, the owner of Palantir, billionaire Peter Thiel, he's apparently going to go around and apparently he has some concerns that of how AI might be used by the Antichrist to build a system of worldwide control. The billionaire who owns the company building the government AI to unify all of their data, you know, he has some concerns about how AI might be used by a future Antichrist.
Do you know how that company came to fruition?
I don't.
9/11.
Palantir?
Yep. They were tasked to gather data after 9/11 because they opened up the doors for everybody to be surveilled, basically, and Palantir came up with the software to do that. That's where Palantir came from. There's so many different, you know, it's more and more every day that there's more affirmation that 9/11 was a fixed event and that there was a lot more profiteering going on than what was originally thought. Like the owner of the Twin Towers, who only owned it for like several months before that,
But took out his...
a week before it happened, he took out terrorist insurance.
Yeah,
And he ate lunch there every day except for the week of the attack
right.
because he had an emergency doctor's visit or something that was made by his wife.
Well, you know, there's like famous pictures showing the towers lit up at night with every floor has lights on it, except for on both the towers, the exact spots where the planes impacted them. And it's like pictures taken like a year or two before 9/11 happened. It's like, well, what are the odds of that being a coincidence? That somebody takes a picture of these towers at night and the exact spots where the planes go
The lights
in,
were on. They just had it blacked out because they were doing construction with explosives.
well, yeah, loading those in. So it's but you know that makes if you think they blew it up, what about the planes people saw?
I don't think they blew it up. Steel does not crumble and disintegrate after a plane hits it, and it's several thousand degrees for it to to fail.
Oh, I agree.
How did it fall in demolition style?
I agree,
if
but
it wasn't demolished,
and they found no remains of those planes. But I guess what I'm getting at there is there's some people online now who think that the planes never hit the buildings at all, that no plane ever went into the building, that what the world saw
was all a hoax,
a hologram of a plane going in, and that they blew up the buildings. So that the world saw a hologram go into the Twin Towers, and at the exact moment when the hologram reaches the Twin Tower,
the explosion.
Yeah.
It's because supposedly there was an explosion split seconds before it actually impacted, too.
Right. And when the plane that went down in the one that went down at the Pentagon, they found everything. They found the terrorist ID. It survived.
Supposedly the terrorist that was piloting that aircraft was a terrible pilot.
Right.
And he had to navigate through all kinds of like power lines and all kinds of other shit that he'd never impacted, and then somehow winded up on the lawn of the Pentagon into the first floor there.
Yeah, the only one I think was a plane going down in the spot where they said it went down. And I don't mean to lessen the loss of life of anybody who was on any of those planes. I think their lives were lost on that day for sure. I just don't think they're telling us everything that really happened with those lives or with those people.
No. There's a huge setup somehow.
Yeah.
There's a doctor that was saying, well, supposedly a bunch of the plane was vaporized, which is why they can't find any parts of the plane, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, how did they find several bodies if the plane was vaporized in the locale of where the plane hit? And how do you find bodies intact and still be able to recognize?
Right. If the plane gets
vaporized.
Well, and there's I've seen some people online talk about it, and they think that 9/11 was a UFO related event, so that they had pre-knowledge that it was going to happen, but that it was going to be some beings from another dimension coming in contact with us. And if you read what they write about the so-called orbs and the crafts that they do, they have run into. What they've released to the public says that they train their people to not engage, don't attack it, do not try to touch it.
That's the beginning of every terrible sci-fi movie.
But not because they're afraid.
Starts shooting,
not because they're afraid it's going to shoot back or it's going to invite a war, because they've done it before. But they said because just coming in contact with it, like if you shoot at it. Your craft will end up being destroyed, or if you come in contact with it, it will just obliterate you. And they describe it in a way that it doesn't sound like a way that we would use to attack something else, like to repel another craft. It seems like it's almost like it
creates a time paradox or something.
Well, it doesn't. It just doesn't want to mix with things from this dimension. Is what it seems like. And when anything that does touch it, it's just completely obliterated in weird ways that don't make immediate sense for us. And so if there was something that like came in from another dimension on 9/11 that the government was trying to obscure,
so what else besides profiteering could have been motive to set all that up?
Personally, I think something called the Greater Israel Project, but that's what I think it's about. I think it's a long-term plan for what the elites see as the future for the West, the next chapter in Western history, which is the rise of a new major power in the world, in the Middle East. Where now, more and more lately, Benjamin Netanyahu and the people in Israel are openly talking about the Greater Israel Project, and people in the media are talking about it, but they plan on taking most of Iraq, all of Syria, a good chunk of Saudi Arabia, a chunk of Egypt, all of Jordan, pretty much all the way over to the Euphrates.
What's their main beef with Iran right now, then?
Well, they get some of their land too. I forgot to mention them. Yeah, some of their land too. And Iran is just the major they're a major anti-Israeli power in the Middle East. Most of the other ones we've already taken out. Saddam wasn't friendly to them. We took him out. Assad's gone in Syria. Gaddafi's gone in Libya. So
Well, I've heard theories that most of those major conflict were due to those powers like Saddam supposedly didn't want to have anything to do with the World Bank. And since he had all of his own gold and whatnot, he thought he could just be like, well, I'm not interested in your agenda. And then everybody else was like, well, since the World Bank funds everything, especially all the wars.
Well, I think that too. I mean, he tried to sell his oil in a form other than the American dollar. And oil is sold exclusive. Well, not anymore. Back then, oil was sold exclusively internationally, only in dollars. Now, the Chinese will. They have a few people who just sell it just in the Chinese currency, and the Saudis are selling it outside for not just the U.S. dollar. I can't remember. I want to say the Russian currency and the Chinese currency. But back then, nobody was, and so I've heard that speculation too. But really, it's all still saying the same thing because the World Bank might call themselves the World Bank, but they're a Western institution, and so it's like if you weren't playing ball with what the Western elites want. Because like all across the Western world, for this war that's happened in the Middle East with Israel taking more and more land, there's not a single country in the Western world where the people there are in favor of it. There's only really just the leaders in all the Western countries. The people in power are in favor of what's happening there. So it seems like the Western elite, and World Bank included, that's the path. Whatever path they wanted to take, Saddam didn't want to go along with that, whether that was the financial reasons or he was in the way of their future goals. But either way, he wasn't playing ball with what they wanted.
Okay, so what about, did we find anything beyond that? I don't think we did. We don't need to.
Another mass extinction warning. I feel like we get one of those every year, right?
Yeah, there's always something. I mean, behind every doomsday headline is a political or profiteering agenda.
Yeah, for sure. I remember being in middle school, I think it was middle school in Louisiana. It was either middle school or had to be my freshman or sophomore year. But I was taking Louisiana state history, and in Louisiana state history, they were teaching us about events yet to come, and they were telling us that. By 2050, half of the state of Louisiana would be gone. It would be underwater. New Orleans would be deep underwater by now. Like could take a boat through downtown and just see the top of some of the buildings. Well, it's been for short bouts, but all in all, what they predicted has in no way come true. For all their claims about sea level rising, Plymouth Rock is still right where it's been since the Pilgrims got there.
Yeah.
Right on the shore, water's not fully over it, but crashing onto it every single day.
Okay, do we go into bankers or Tartaria?
Oh, Tartaria.
Oh, you've been chomping at the bit all day for this.
That one. I feel like that one can lead to some of the other spots.
I think it'll lead into every other topic we've ever talked about.
Yeah. So I guess we gotta give a basic introduction to Tartaria. Basically, Tartaria is a lot of different conspiracy theories, sometimes contradictory conspiracy theories, but the basic idea is that there was a lost empire in history, but not in the Atlantis lost empire sort of sense. In more recent history, sometime around the 1800s, a nation was on the scene that has been intentionally and deliberately erased from history. That's what the theory pretty much proclaims, and they base that on the fact that there were countries on older maps from back then titled Grand Tartary that just simply vanished from maps. There are old maps labeling large regions of the world that, our traditional history teaches were parts of other countries, labeling them Tartary. Little things like the Great Wall of China. The Great Wall of China faces I can't say the word right. The buttress on the wall, the pretty much the defensive part of the wall that reaches out from the wall. So where you would have an archer standing to look out and stand watch, they face the wrong direction. They're not facing Mongolia. They're facing China. So that part seems weird.
The Great Wall was meant to keep things in?
Yeah. Either the Great Wall was to make sure nobody was leaving China, or it was to keep people from China out, and not the other way around. Not the Chinese trying to keep the Mongolians out. Now, and I should add that historians generally teach that the point of that was because they used the Great Wall to deal with internal strife and rebellion as well. I'm just like, well, still seems like a really elaborate thing to do for internal strife, to build that long of a wall facing the opposite direction. And going along with Tartaria, it's they point to older buildings, old worlds. I should say what we would traditionally say is Victorian style and Greco-Roman buildings that are throughout the world. Every single country, just like every American state, seems to have a Greco-Roman capital. Even in East Asia, South America, all over the world, there's these Greco-Roman buildings that are used as capital buildings. A lot of proponents of the Tartaria theory, point out the fact that our Greco-Roman capital buildings are built exactly like the temples of the Roman Empire, essentially. So they, if we were to redecorate them and all of a sudden call them a temple to Jupiter, they would fit perfectly. They would fit the layout and everything perfectly. So what they essentially allege is that a lot of these buildings were not built by the people who say they built them. They were in fact found by conquerors or scavengers, one or the other, who came along, found them, renovated them, and claimed them for their own. I think the building part is the part of the conspiracy that is the most intriguing for me, or the part that at least catches my interest the most, because in every major American city you do have these buildings seemingly built on top of an older building, or you'll have the buildings in downtown where there's a window well level with the ground, where it just wouldn't have made sense to have a window there. Why would you want a window where half the window's underground? But I don't know. When you hear this theory, what stands out to you?
Well, we've always been talking about forgotten history or forgotten empires or certain history that's been covered up or changed due to the liking of the winning suitor. And, it's not surprising to me, but it's what is surprising is the grand scale of this, how big of an empire this supposedly is, and how much effort has gone into keeping this as hush hush.
Well, and I feel like there's, as I laid out there at the beginning, there's some parts of the Tartaria theory they contradict one another, so it all doesn't add with each other. I feel like there's different
by design if you're trying to bury it.
Right. You got to throw a lot out there,
contrarian stuff in there that.
Yeah, but I feel like it's either got to be one of the two. If it's true, one of the two main theories have to fit. Either it was a global civilization, in which case, how they got rid of it is, boggles the mind more. How you could get rid of something that was a global civilization and cover it up. It would seem like there's a bigger secret that's being hidden. Or it was a competing civilization that was around while the civilizations we know about were around. If it was a competing civilization and competing spiritual system, I can I can envision that being destroyed and buried easier, you know, where you would just it would be a lot easier because you wouldn't essentially have to try too hard. You would fight your wars, kill the people who work for them, let the rest of them die out. Maybe you throw them in asylums, and then take what's theirs, you know. But
Can you bring up a map of?
it's supposed to be where Russia was, and
That's kind of what I'm seeing. Is it's upper part of Asia there?
yeah. So the earliest reference to it is in a history book from the late 1700s. So it was shortly after America became a country, and they reference the Grand Tartary, and in the book it was I think it was this guy's Carey's map of independent Tartary, and it's a good chunk, I guess, below Russia, but a good chunk of that's all of Tibet, good chunk of China, good chunk of Mongolia. And in his book, it was referenced that this was supposedly an empire founded by Genghis Khan. But in the history we're taught, Genghis Khan empire died out a long time ago.
Wait, Genghis Khan died before Tartaria?
Well, of course, Genghis Khan died before this Tartaria. This is 1808 when it's referenced. But I'm saying the traditional history teaches the empire and the kingdoms, the khanates left around the world from Genghis Khan and his descendants. By the time of the age of colonialism, they were supposedly all gone. Just his descendants would have only controlled a few spots in Mongolia, really. That should have been it, if traditional history, if what they teach is right. Because for the longest time, they controlled all of Russia. So that part, history does teach that they would have controlled all of this land that's shown as part of independent Tartary on this map, and all of Russia, all the Middle East. They even controlled the land that the Ottoman Empire ended up occupying in the Middle East at one point. But traditional history teaches that these were roaming nomads, warriors on horseback who came in, just conquered, pillaged, and set up control. And then within a few generations, it was infighting.
Nomads make good infiltrators, I guess you could say. They good foot soldiers.
Yeah. And, I guess what I would add to that is just a lot of that just doesn't seem to fit the world or the creations coming out of that world back then. Because the same world where we're told that these people were just living in huts and just going from one spot to another on horseback, these are the people who live in huts and go from one spot, like pretty much camping, traveling, forever campers with weapons. They roll in and they're able to defeat a people who could build Notre Dame and like the huge Gothic cathedrals, the huge works being done in Europe during the Middle Ages.
Well, I will say that engineering is not exactly a transferable skill into combat.
Right.
Or strategy.
But wouldn't you think a civilization's understanding of sciences should equate to warfare?
Somewhat, but again, some of the greatest known historical powers weren't even the strongest. They just happened to have a better strategy, like Alexander the Great.
Yeah.
And some of them conquered just through carrying pestilence with them.
Yeah.
Like the Mayans and the Aztecs died supposedly of a virus. And the Spaniards that showed up just hung out for months and months and months because they couldn't get inside their fortress. But eventually they were so few after
this illness made
its way through that, it doesn't necessarily mean the winning side was more adept at fighting or more adept at technology.
That is true. I mean, we have clearly throughout history some events happen that cause technology to take a big fall, where we lose knowledge. And I guess so that's where the Tartaria theory sort of separates from the mud flood theory. So, going along with the Tartaria theory is the mud flood theory goes hand in hand with it, and the mud flood theory is this idea of a worldwide cataclysm that buried advanced cities in 10 to 20 feet of mud, erasing the Tartarian civilization, supposedly. And the evidence that is cited is usually old photos of buildings with buried first floors, windows below street level, or doors leading to nowhere.
Yeah, I've seen pictures of buildings that were dug out, and there's a whole floor under,
Yeah.
like, solid earth.
Well, in what every major city in the world is seemingly built on top of itself, and we're given explanations of, it's just erosion, But I don't think that's an adequate explanation.
No, you don't just lose an entire floor to a building due to erosion. It's a long process,
right? And not in a place that's continuously occupied, right? It would be one thing to say, hey, we built a little shed in the woods and came back 100 years later,
and it was underground,
right?
That's different
than somewhere in the city, continuously occupied.
There's a guy that gets
used by
paid to
people.
shovel that mud
Exactly
somewhere.
every single day.
Yeah.
So that part. But when I think about the mud flood theory, that's why I said earlier that to me it would seem more likely that if this grand empire of Tartaria did exist, that was somehow technologically advanced in ways that we are not taught for the 1800s and the maybe centuries before that, then I think it's more likely that they were a competing civilization and a competing spiritual system. So a lot of the big churches, cathedrals, and the buildings that seem to have steeples on top. One thing that goes along with the mud flood theory is that a lot of these old buildings were not built for the religious purposes. They were built in a Nikola Tesla-like fashion to harness electricity from the ether, from the air, from the earth itself. And that those buildings, along with the star forts, the geometrically designed cities, and star forts all across Europe, Asia, Africa, and the Americas, weren't for the military. It was all part of this, what the theory would say is a Tartarian global energy grid. And they would point to the mathematical precision and layout and placement of these places. Are you familiar with have you ever seen the star forts?
No, let's see, star forts.
So, and these are all over the place, all over the world.
It actually looks like a Chinese flying star or any kind of pointed star.
Yeah, and so this is what it looks like from an aerial view.
So,
and
Starfort is Tartarian,
supposedly the people who push the Tartarian theory, they say it is. Now all these star forts are perfect geometric precision.
Yeah, it looks
perfect measurements and everything. It's really precise at a time period. And supposedly, let's see. I want to see when did it was.
So what's the advantage of the star? I guess because to get to any breachable wall, you have to be within the confines of 2 points of the star.
So they say these emerged in Italy during the mid 15th century. So it's the 15th century. So that's the 1400s. Refined by architects, spreading from Italy in the 1530s. So 15th and 16th century is supposedly when these were first being spread. It was supposedly just to give them like great defensive positions, so people couldn't sneak up on them or anything. Now, the people who say that that's a lie and that these were used for something else say that no, you wouldn't do all of this. And people who were living in shacks and living in squalor, from what we're told, wouldn't take the time to build this. Why wouldn't you just build yourself a little fort with a moat if you really wanted a moat? Do you need?
Yeah, it seems like it's not built for war, strictly war.
Right.
It looks like it's more ornate than that. It's like it was very intentional, obviously, and I feel like it's like a an homage to worship, or maybe even something similar to a petroglyph,
Yeah.
to like we're honoring the gods by building this structure so they can.
It reminds me of like Serpent's Mound.
We're the 5-star tribe, so they'll come see it. They'll just see it from the sky and be able to, because there's multiple different designs. There's like a 4-pointed star, 5-pointed star. There's that one is 1, 2, 3,
Well,
9 points on that one.
We get 1, 2, 3, 4. So it could also be envisioned as, I look at this and I almost see like the symbol on a compass, but it could also be envisioned as, were they trying to make a layout of a platonic solid with the land?
It looks like a cymatic too.
Right? Or it could be a cymatic.
But that one almost looks like a pyramid.
Built on top of, it looks like it could be built on top of one.
Yeah, it was built on top of a pyramid.
And the amount, and so for the listeners, I know you can't see this. I look up Starfort, and what we're talking about here is
Portuguese Starfort is what we're looking at right now.
And we're not these Starforts. They're not. It's not stone walls that make them shaped like a star, though. Although most of them do have stone walls, but it's the earthworks that really define a star
like
fort.
Moats or deep trenches dug around that make it clearly visibly a star.
Yeah, and not all of them have the moats, but I think they all did, because even the ones that are pictured today without moats, you can tell the ground's sunken in certain spots.
I'm curious, what does the structure underneath these star forts look like?
Well,
because all the other ancient technology or ancient architecture that we've talked about has some sort of
corresponding
below the earth,
as above, so below.
Yeah,
yeah. So it would make sense that it should.
Do you have a star fort on your Minecraft?
Well, I'm going to now. You see that image too. Yeah. I'm looking at it and I'm like, oh, I'm building a star fort. We're getting one right off the island. We're gonna put one right offshore. So yeah, but they built these star forts. The star forts do happen to be on ley lines too, on ley line intersections.
Okay, define a ley line for me and our listeners.
So a ley line is
it's like spiritual,
energetic. It's
highly
a grid.
Energetic.
Yeah,
area.
You can take a map of the Earth, and it's just like a grid you throw over this map of the Earth. But there's a set map for it. And let me see. I want to see what would ChatGPT define ley line as. So ley lines are an idea from modern folklore and alternative archaeology, suggesting that certain sites, monuments, or natural features are aligned along invisible straight lines crisscrossing the earth. And I'm pretty sure this first came from people studying ancient sites like the pyramids and that sort of thing, and they lined them up on the map, and they just happened to notice they're like, whoa, these spots are kind of lined up. So the concept is that landmarks such as Stonehenge, pyramids, megaliths, burial mounds, or even natural features like mountains and springs often line up in straight paths.
Well, I've heard, like, mythologically speaking, that ley lines are highly energetic.
Yes,
with like ethereal presence.
That's the belief of them. That it's pretty much carrying the energy of the earth through.
So is there like maybe a magnetic spire right there? Because I think like the magnetosphere goes in and out within the giant magnetosphere. There's all kinds of different magnetic flux that go in and out in certain points on the surface of the earth.
I mean, it could be magnetism, but I think it's some form of energy we're not currently, our modern science is not aware of. That's what I think that whatever this ley line is, because it's generally thought of as like some sort of like a spiritual, almost like energy. But like it's saying, mountains and springs, natural features seem to line up with this too. So it's if life itself had an energy, I would say that's what ley line energy is supposed to be. So believers often describe ley lines as channels of earth energy, sometimes compared to meridians in Chinese medicine. These lines are said to carry spiritual or electromagnetic power. And then for the mystical significance, some see them as evidence of ancient global network of knowledge, navigation, or communication, possibly even a grid used by used by advanced or lost civilizations. And the term was coined in 1921 by Alfred Watkins, a British amateur archaeologist who noticed alignments of ancient sites in the English countryside. He believed they were old trackways used for trade or pilgrimage. And then later writers expanded on the idea, turning ley lines from practical pathways into mystical or energetic alignments.
Where does the Bermuda Triangle fall along the ley line map?
Let's see.
There's also an Alaskan Bermuda Triangle that I wanted to talk about.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
I wonder if it's anywhere near the Black Pyramid, the supposed Black Pyramid in Alaska.
Well, let's look it up.
So, I once heard something about the Bermuda Triangle that this is the reason the Bermuda Triangle has the reputation it has is because the government's shooting down anybody or any ships who go around there, because that's where all of NASA shuttles land when they do their big arc taking off from Cape Canaveral in Florida. They land right there at the Bermuda Triangle, and the Bermuda Triangle did not have this reputation.
Bermuda?
In the Caribbean.
Well, yeah, part of the Bermuda Triangle is the tip of Florida.
Bermuda, yeah.
And then Bermuda, and then where's the other point?
I'm not sure which island, but I know it's one of the islands. But it's just this big stretch of ocean, of the Caribbean Sea. And there's pretty much the idea is just saying that the shuttles land there, and they don't want people to know that the shuttles aren't actually going into space. So anybody whose ships happen to be down there, you might see something. Well, you got to go. And the Bermuda Triangle did not have the reputation it has now until a couple of years before NASA's creation, and we started launching stuff up. It was like there were no stories like that, of anything like that happening there, until right before NASA.
Well, there was plenty of ships and whatnot. There's folklore.
Yeah, but not of ships disappearing or running into trouble. All the stories of ships running into trouble that began in the mid 1900s, shortly before NASA's creation, and it started.
There's got to be a pirate story.
There's not. I'm dead serious. Like the first stories came about in
Pirates of the Caribbean. Come on.
Yeah, but there's nothing with the Bermuda Triangle there. Let's see.
Okay, so ley lines, Bermuda Triangle.
Yes.
We've been derailed here.
Sorry. Yeah, we were. Ley line map. I wanted to see a ley line map of the Caribbean. And it puts a little center there in the Caribbean, right off the tip of Florida.
Yeah, there's a big epicenter there.
Yeah, and that does seem to match with, that's consistent in all of these maps. So
the tip of, well, it's just off the coast, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Ooh, I wonder if that's Bermuda right there.
And there's there's a spot supposedly in, is it Arizona or New Mexico? That's like a ley line nexus. Sedona, Arizona, Mount Shasta, Bighorn Medicine Wheel in Wyoming, and Chaco Canyon, New Mexico, Serpent Mound, Ohio, Cahokia Mound, Illinois, and Mount Denali in Alaska. And Mount Denali is the spot where I think I've heard that supposed Black Pyramid is under. I wonder if that's where the Alaskan Triangle is.
The Alaskan Triangle is pull it up. It's in between Juneau, Anchorage, and Barrow, Alaska. It's a huge portion of it. More people have vanished in the Alaskan Bermuda Triangle. Even the rescue missions don't return at times.
Okay, it covers nearly half of Alaska, though. But Alaska's just a wild spot too.
Well, yeah.
Oh my God, since 1988, over 16,000 people are reported missing in the Triangle. That's a lot of people to go missing in Alaska. I know it's been a lot of years since 1988, but still, 16,000. It's twice the national average. The national average still feels high, If the national average would place it at around 8,000, I guess. Planes, hikers, hunters, tourists vanished without a trace. In 1972, House Majority Leader Hale Boggs and Congressman Nick Beckich disappeared there.
I want to know more about the Alaskan pyramid because we have to have a pyramid on every episode.
Yeah, Dark Pyramid or Black Pyramid. Yeah, and it's supposedly under Mount McKinley or Mount Denali.
Okay, Dark Pyramid, go.
All right, so the so-called Alaska Black Pyramid, sometimes just called the Alaskan Pyramid, is claimed to be within the boundaries of the Alaskan Triangle. Reports usually place it underground near Mount McKinley, or also known as Mount Denali, or somewhere between Nome and Juneau. Now, Nome, Alaska, is where that movie Encounters of the Fourth Kind is supposedly. That's where that takes place.
Was it?
Yeah, it's a whole bunch of UFO encounters.
Devil's
up there.
Tower is in Wyoming.
The Devil's yeah, but I thought
That's where the final scene was in Close Encounters of the Fourth Kind. Or Third Kind. There was a movie, Third Kind, Fourth Kind, Fifth Kind, wasn't there?
yeah, and I mean I thought it was the Fourth Kind. The Close Encounters of the Fourth Kind. Yeah, Close Encounters of the Fourth Kind.
Well, there was Devil's Tower, which was giant tree stump.
I think that had to be the Third Kind, that movie, and the fourth kind is
Nome,
Nome,
Alaska.
Alaska.
What are the different kinds of encounters? Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind. Yeah, there's been movies on all of them.
Let's see. So, a U.S. geophysical survey of the Earth's crust allegedly revealed. So this is back to just more on the Black Pyramid here. The story first circulated in the 1990s, reportedly tied to a 1992 Chinese underground nuclear test. A U.S. geophysical survey of the Earth's crust allegedly revealed a massive pyramid-shaped structure buried in Alaska, supposedly larger than the Great Pyramid of Giza. Some claims say NBC Anchorage broadcasted a story about it, which was quickly suppressed. That's what I remember hearing. I remember watching this interview of a soldier who was stationed up there, and he claimed he and his friends watched it on TV, and then, it was wiped and no mention of it afterwards. Because there was a nuclear test, so that made the earth shake, set off the earthquake monitors. A nuclear test that basically set off the Richter scale. And then it was reported but quickly suppressed. So
they did a nuclear test in Nome, Alaska?
No, the Chinese did an underground nuclear test that sent reverberations around the world. And so anybody who watches out for earthquakes, when any country tests one underground, it sets it off. So, and believers in the pyramid say it's part of a worldwide network of pyramids like Giza, Teotihuacan, the Bosnian pyramids, all aligned along ley lines. And some claim it functions as an ancient energy generator or transmitter, possibly still active. And the pyramid is sometimes linked to the strange phenomena in the Alaskan Triangle: electromagnetic interference, aircraft failures, vanishing people. But supposedly, part of the story that goes over with this pyramid is when people are flying over that area, when they get too close to the supposed Black Pyramid, when they get too close to Mount Denali, electronics stop working. So if you're in a plane, all of a sudden, engine dies, all the electronics just stop. Everything.
Giant EMF signal of some sort, maybe.
Yeah. In some sort of way, it kills all the electronics. And so that definitely adds to the mystery.
Does the same thing happen when you fly over Teotihuacan or Pyramids of Giza? Or, maybe the ones in Giza aren't active anymore because there's not an aquifer underneath it any longer.
Maybe. But I know the ones in Giza, if you stand on them.
Teotihuacan still has an aquifer.
Yeah. Well, I know the ones in Giza. And I don't know if this is the same case for Teotihuacan. Can't say it.
Teotihuacan.
But in Giza, if you stand on top of the pyramids in the Nile's flood season, so when the waters are high in the Nile, and you hold your hand up, you can see sparks flying off your hand. There's that much power flowing through that pyramid still. And it's been, stripped of its exterior. The cap's gone. So it's a shell of its former self. So if there is one still fully operational, hasn't been damaged, who knows what kind of power effects it's giving off,
Yeah. So The pyramid in Alaska it's not an obvious pyramid. It's supposedly buried
It's supposedly deep underground. And that
deep
there's
underground.
Yeah. And that there's a military installation.
Well, is
up
there some sort of resemblance of a pyramid?
I
Like
think
a mountain or like some raised ground that looks vaguely like a pyramid? Like why do they call it a pyramid if it's completely underground?
from what I've heard is that it's, there have been government whistleblowers who've been talking about it. But this one's supposedly like a pyramid built under the ground. That you have to go deep underground and then you see the pyramid. But I think the mountain on top of it is also shaped like a pyramid. But yeah, the dark pyramid is supposedly beneath the mountain.
That
which
definitely
would be
looks like a pyramid.
this one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Triangular Pyramid Mountain Denali. Yeah, Mount
The
Denali.
lines are far too straight.
That's Mount Denali.
It
And
doesn't look underground whatsoever.
I tell you,
It just looks like it's covered in a little bit of dirt.
well, but if what the claims are true, then you go underneath that, and you go through all the chambers and everything, and then you come across a massive dugout chamber with a pyramid underground.
Another pyramid inside the pyramid.
Or under which, if that's true, just how astonishing. Like, can you imagine? I can only imagine building something like that in Minecraft. To go deep underground and build something as grand and spectacular as a pyramid and then bury it with a mountain.
Right. Well, clearly there was some greater knowledge back then, because even if you went in there with intention to build something, why would you build,
Why would it be under a mountain?
and operational even?
Yeah.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Let's talk about one of our sponsors.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Do we start with Good Feels?
Yeah, what is Good Feels? What is this? What is this new stuff that you like?
So Good Feels is a cannabis-infused seltzer. So they've got THC and CBD infused drinks that you can get and order online, get them shipped straight to your house. See, I don't want to get their site wrong. You go to shop.getgoodfeels.com to see their range of THC-infused drinks.
Or you can click on the link right in our podcast, I believe.
Yeah, or you can click on the link on your screen. So it's it's great for if you want to relax at home or go out with the friends and you don't want to drink. You can get yourself a seltzer, fit right in, and nobody has to know why you seem so relaxed. So they have a wide range of products. All their products are just designed to enhance your mood, bring a sense of calm, and help you wind down the day.
Yeah, just use our code DTL2025. That'll get you 20% off. And even if you don't like CBD drink or THC drinks, there is another product that we have called Shimmerwood beverages. They are strictly CBD. They are 5 milligrams full spectrum CBD, vegan, gluten-free, no added sugars, non-GMO, locally sourced from Maine. Some of the flavors include just hemp, ginger orange, raz lime, or chai cherry. I think they're really good. I'm not a huge cannabis guy, but I am into CBD quite a bit, and I believe in all the health benefits in both of them.
It still has a calming effect too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely calming. It's good for your joints, your circulation, overall well-being and mood.
Yeah, I'm a THC fan, so anytime I've had something with CBD, I'm looking for that extra kick that the THC brings to relaxation.
Again, you can find a link in our podcast for Shimmerwood beverages or Good Feels. Use the code DTL2025, shimmerwood.com or goodfeels.com.
Yep. Use that promo code, get yourself a discount, and help support the podcast in the process.
We get 15% commission when you use our code, by the way.
Yeah, so help us look into more theories and help yourself relax at the same time and save some money.
Nice. So I got curious and looked up the definition of the kinds of close encounters.
Yeah, what are the different
close
ones?
encounters of the first kind is a visual observation of a UFO. Second kind is a visual sighting with evidence of the UFO's effects, such as powered items ceasing to function. So these planes flying over had a close encounter of the second kind. Third kind, a visual encounter or sighting involving an animated alien creature or organism, like we saw in the Steven Spielberg movie, on top of Devil's Tower. Close encounters of the fourth kind would be an abduction event where a human is taken by a UFO or its occupants. Fifth kind would be contact between human and alien beings resulting in communication. Sixth kind is death caused by an alien or non-Earth entity. Seventh kind, the creation of an alien-human hybrid through reproduction. So having sex with an alien is the seventh kind.
I don't know if the sixth and seventh kind don't sound all that appealing, but the other ones might be fun. I don't know about death by alien. I prefer not.
I don't know why death is on the list as being an encounter, but I guess.
Well, it's one thing that might happen if you encounter them. You might just die.
Okay, so where the fuck were we? We went off on a deep tangent here.
Yeah, we went to different topics, but I kind of want to circle back to the mud flood aspect of Tartaria because, like I was saying when we first went down,
let's
the
assume
buried buildings.
Let's
is the only
assume one
that
of these
seems true.
theories is true. So the mud flood happened, and it buried the civilization, and then they just had no resilience whatsoever and couldn't recoup from this mud flood, and all of their history was lost.
Well, and that part seems far fetched, right? Because
Yeah,
you would
it's pretty
think
hard
that
to believe.
you would think if there was this global civilization that,
And even if it was buried, it'd still be there.
and it would be in history, and you would want to tell about the event that caused us to have to build on top of all the
They were never
buildings.
a threat. They just disappeared. Here's the history.
So to me, that's
Put it in a museum somewhere.
so then, when playing with this rabbit hole with ChatGPT came up with two interesting accidental collapse hypotheses. So, I think it's fun to throw in one that's not
accidentally
accidental.
destroyed themselves with their technology.
Yeah, and that's one that it threw in, and this one
That's
I
a little
felt-
more believable.
Well, and I felt, considering what we've talked about in previous episodes, I thought this one was really interesting. So it says, a civilization built with a technological understanding of resonance science, so the science of sound and resonating frequency, having a resonant cascade failure. So if their civilization is built with bell and tower networks and these star forts, and they're in a Nikola Tesla-like fashion, having a transfer of energy wirelessly, then just so the way it describes it here, just like a glass shattering when a note hits its resonance, whole cities built as part of this type of power grid could have collapsed if frequencies aligned in the wrong way. Bell and tower networks, if bells really tuned energy instead of just made a pretty sound saying "come to church," then a misalignment or over amplification could have tuned the power grid into a destructive wave, liquefying soil, toppling structures, and creating the mud flood. So kind of similar to modern nuclear fears, a previous civilization with this sort of understanding could have unlocked forces beyond their control. They could have just been playing around with frequencies.
Yeah, they could have. I find it hard to believe that they just were playing around and fucked up the entire.
To me, what seems more likely is that if an understanding of
If they understood what it did, it would be pretty hard for them to completely fuck it up that bad.
right, and if they understand what they're doing, then what seems more likely is ChatGPT's weaponized mud flood hypothesis of resonance weapons, large-scale vibration tech. Think Nikola Tesla's earthquake machine, which until reading that, I didn't even know Nikola Tesla had an earthquake
it was
machine.
pretty decimating.
Yeah. So something like that, or something better than that, could liquefy soil and trigger mud-like inundations across cities. Atmospheric energy overload. If Tartaria used towers and domes and bells to capture free atmospheric energy, then a hostile force might have inverted or overloaded the system, turning the energy grid into a weapon against itself.
I think that's the most believable theory so far.
Yeah.
But
I could see barbarians coming in. If a civilization was around that had this, utopian mindset of everybody gets free energy and we build all this stuff for everybody in these great buildings, and barbarians come in and just loot and destroy it, I could see them accidentally messing with the technology and causing it to behave in a destructive fashion.
potentially, I think they were smarter than that, though. I think it was more betrayal from within. I think somebody within the Tartarian Empire decided that an opposing force, because it was supposedly another culture that was growing alongside other cultures. I think that somebody from the inside decided, well, I'm not getting what I want out of this society. I'm a narcissistic asshole and I want more power, but they won't give me the power.
So I got to tear
And
down
so
this whole system.
I'm going to conspire with the opposing force and we can bring it all to the ground and then I will be all powerful,
Yeah.
kind of thing. I think there's, conspiracy within the conspiracy.
I could easily picture selfish, if this sort of technology was around, I could see selfish forces deciding that that's not the technology they want to spread across the world. 'Cause
Right, I mean-
it leaves people too free.
Yeah, there's always somebody that wants to monetize whatever it is.
Yeah. Sell access,
Yeah.
you
You need a
gets free
subscription
electricity?
to your electricity.
Where's the money in free electricity? So, but the reason it even went to the bell and tower network is because one thing that goes along with the mud flood theory is the melting of the bells, which was this just phenomena that happened in World War I, where every country, and if for listeners, if you just go to Google Images and
Holy
search
fuck.
melting of the bells.
Look at those bells.
Yeah, and the images you come up with when you search melting of the bells, it all happened around World War I. Every country in the world, they were collecting all the bells they could get, and I mean there were lots of them. Where you just got to wonder, why did they even need this many bells? What place?
Oh, the fact that there was that many bells in the first place?
Yeah, the fact that there's this many bells in the first place, I find
Is
odd.
there documentation of the origination of where all these bells came from?
Well, there's all sorts of, there's still companies around that produce the bells.
No, but there was 15 bells that came from London, and then there was 200 bells that came from Washington D.C. Or, is there some sort of accounting of what bell came from somewhere? Because if it was meant to tear down this technology of reverberation, you would think they would know exactly where each one came from, so there can't be a lost bell somewhere that somebody can use.
So let's see. Bells were so there. Apparently, I just asked ChatGPT. I said, with the melting of the bells, are there records of where the bells came from and where they went? And ChatGPT's answer, they say yes. And this is where it gets extra suspicious. If you look at it through the Tartaria lens, the fate of the bells in the 18th through 19th centuries is actually well documented, but the official reasons don't always line up with the scale of removals. Let's break it down. Wars as cover stories. So bells were often requisitioned and melted down during wartime. The Napoleonic Wars, World War I and World War II. Official use. They needed them for cannon casting and ammunition production. And in reality, not every bell needed to be melted. Yet in many towns, entire sets disappeared, including those too large or ornate to easily convert to weapons. So state and church inventories, cathedrals, monasteries, and towns kept registers of their bells, some going back centuries. In Russia, France, and Germany, entire bell towers were stripped in the 1800s, 1900s, often with receipts and transport logs showing the bells sent to foundries. Official narrative contributions to war effort or modernization. And bells were melted and recast into industrial bronze or brass components. Records show many ended up in railway ports, telegraph lines, and factory machinery. A strange transition if bells were tuned resonators. You're taking a precise harmonic device and turning it into cogs and rails. So, and then in some places, Soviet Union, Revolutionary France, post-Reformation England, bell removals were ideological, silencing the religious authority. So,
What were these bells made of?
brass. Most bells are made out of brass or bronze.
Was the bell maker the all-powerful wizard back then?
I guess so. And I mean,
Was he the true time traveler? Could he just tune a bell up and be like, I'm going to 1976?
and it seems like the bells were pretty important for their towns. If towns kept records of their bells going back centuries, if it's just, I mean, who
And they just
do we-
fucking gave it all up?
and if it's just it's just something to tell people, hey, it's 12 o'clock, or hey, there's an event going on. Do you really? I guess it was expensive, so you keep up with it. But I mean, something that big, you don't just lose. So, how many records do you need?
Well, it was probably a lot of labor and resource effort to remove the bell as well.
Yeah,
Like, I imagine a bell tower was built around the fucking bell.
right, right.
Like, you don't just
Well-
say, well, it's time to replace the bell once every 30 years. Let's dismantle the entire bell tower and put in a new bell. The bell doesn't fit in the fucking window.
Oh, the bell and the bells lasted centuries. Centuries.
Yeah, they're 300 years old, most of them.
Yeah. So that's one of the things that proponents of the theory point to is that they are covering up some sort of technology in history. That these, I think it's important to note too that these bells took en masse from around the world.
Those were all American bells.
These are Americans. Now I'm just one. So I guess some
What
of these
about the
pictures
rest
are
of the
Germans.
world?
No. This is an image of Germans collecting church bells.
Oh,
So no, I just wanted to see pictures of American bells for this last one. But we famously have the Liberty Bell, the bell that's broken and chained up.
weren't the Germans on our side during World War One?
No, we were against them then too. But I mean, look at the size of this thing.
Well, why were the Germans and the Americans doing the same thing?
Everybody was. Everybody.
Because somehow there wasn't enough metal.
In Notre Dame, every year they parade out bells. So the Catholic Church still keeps bells stored. They pay enormous sums of money to keep large numbers of giant bells. So it would just seem that they know that the bells are a little bit more important. It's not just like, look at this big giant fancy thing we got here,
Right.
And I think it's important to note too that the buildings that a lot of these bells are in, and that's what a lot of the proponents of the Tartaria theory are thinking when they're looking at this.
Buildings were designed for resonance too.
And when they're looking at the buildings and they're saying, hey, these buildings were not built by a less civilized people. These buildings were built by a more civilized people. A more civilized people built Notre Dame, not people who, it's hard for me to believe that you build Notre Dame, that beautiful cathedral, and then you go up to the fourth floor and you shit in a bucket and you pour it out the window. You
didn't have plumbing, but you knew how to build.
Right. You can't figure out what to do with a little bit of running water, but you can build that. It doesn't really add up. And that sort of goes into the thinking. So they're what's in the mindset is like, hey, if you build this building so precise, it's mathematical proportions, then and it's acoustically designed, then you have more purpose than just wanting people to know it's time to come to church. But maybe Maybe not. Maybe life's just full of crazy coincidences, and it was all just so people could go to church. And there was no better way to get metal to make cannons.
Well, we know that a lot of Christianity didn't necessarily adopt previous practices and faiths, but they built their own practice and whatnot to bury the old practice, like the Christmas tree. It was a design practice to bury the Yule and the worship of the tree and the coming of spring and all of these things. And like, you know, there a lot of Christian tradition was built around to bury paganism. So I wonder, maybe the same thing happened with these bells with the Christian church, that they just, like, we see the importance of this bell and the resonance of this bell will kind of tune people into a certain wavelength, and we don't want to completely get rid of it, but we don't want to continue the old practice.
Yeah, you know, I just I wish I could wrap my mind. It makes me want to get another. I have one. I have a little Tibetan bell. You've seen the ones that are pretty common. You know what I'm talking about?
I feel like you could go to any mall and get something from Tibet.
Yeah, well, like this right here, I call it the Tibetan Buddhist bell, but and I probably had it for 2 years before I learned the right way to actually use it. Yeah, I used to think you ring it like a cowbell, and then somebody told me that the handle screws off, and I used that to ring it, and I was like, whoa, that's a totally different sound, especially if you're in a quiet room, and there's got to be something to that. You know, if you're in a quiet room and you ding a bell and you just listen to how long that sound is really going for before it stops, it goes for a really long time, an incredibly long time.
I've bought several Tibetan singing bowls, and when you're looking at them, most of them have a different tone, and they usually have, like, it's tuned to F sharp or whatever, and supposedly it tunes into a different chakra, and they're all very interesting. It's curious to see what sort of frequency each one does for you, and, you know, is it 110 hertz again, or...
Craziest conspiracy I ever heard for the bells is that it goes with the whole reptilian shapeshifters run the world, and they took the bells away because the bells
disrupted their ability to shapeshift?
Disrupts their ability to disguise themselves to us. So the bells and the frequencies make it so people become more aware of these non-human entities amongst us.
Ooh, I like that theory.
That one, that's what, when I first heard that one, that's what sent me down the, I heard that one at the same time as learning that they got, had all these big melting bell
the
campaigns.
Draconians in their ability to conceal themselves.
That one's a fun one. I have the least amount to support that one, but that one's the most fun one.
Sometimes the fun one is probably true because it's made to be so ridiculous.
Yeah, but if you're ever worried that your neighbor or coworker is a reptilian shapeshifter, get yourself a bell,
Where else does Tartaria take us today?
Let's see. I think Mudflood is pretty much where Tartaria ends. What else did it lay out for us with Tartaria? It was
there's a lot more to Tartaria, but
World Fairs, Orphan Trains, that one.
We didn't go there. Fairs.
The World Fairs.
So I remember there's quite a bit of mystery about World Fairs, like where did they come from and who hosted them, and
we're doing another one.
How was all this technology supposedly built within less than a year every year?
Yeah.
And
not the technology, how the constructions.
The constructions.
Oh, because it was all plaster, supposedly.
Bullshit.
I know. If you see the things that they built, and and you got hundreds of thousands of people walking on it, and I'm supposed to believe that's plaster? Come on, So I want to say, okay, so they're still having the World Expo next. So they do World Expo now, and not a World Fair. But the old World World's Fairs, they were showcasing technology that was just revolutionary. I've seen ones where I want to say maybe it was San Francisco. Could be getting that one wrong. It could be Chicago. But the like conveyor belt, but like that's not the right word for it. Like the one at the airport, the one for people. You know what I'm talking? You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's like a escalator, but it's lateral.
Yeah, they had that at one of the World's Fairs in like the late 1800s, and they're just like moving people around.
Aren't there pictures of World's Fair where there's like steampunk robots and stuff?
And that supposedly just is a statue meant to look like it, supposedly, but they had electric cars, all sorts of things where it's just like it seems like they were showcasing a lot of the technology that didn't end up really coming into full fruition until a long time after. And the buildings.
Wouldn't the World's Fair be seen as a huge threat to the billionaire moguls, trillionaire moguls of nowadays? Like, look at all this new technology that can completely ruin your cornering of the market on gasoline or electric cars that you're building now or whatever it is.
Yeah, maybe. But back then it was them they were the ones putting these things on,
The billionaires.
Yeah. And the pictures from them are incredible. So Chicago's World's Fair, they have this big golden statue. I got to see that in color. Let's see. There it is. They've got this big giant golden statue. It's still left. It's still there. But but the other pictures of the giant buildings, it looks like you're looking at Venice.
1893 was when that golden statue was built?
Yeah, well, and the statue is still there. They left it. The whole thing was incredible. And, they did these in all sorts of cities, San Francisco, Chicago, you name it. And as soon as the World's Fair is over, they tear down all the buildings. So, listeners, I definitely recommend Googling this, but, it looks like we're looking at Rome.
Yeah, it looks like a capital city that was built overnight.
And at the very least,
or months on end, but still, like,
at the very least,
anything constructed nowadays takes years to build something like that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and they threw this all up, and it's supposedly just plaster, but it's plaster that can withstand weather and hundreds of thousands of people walking on.
It was plaster, and it's been around for over 120 years.
No, the golden statue. We built a real golden statue. Just all the buildings and everything they say were plaster. But what's funny is, like, for every single World's Fair, there's some buildings that remain, a minority of them, and they're legit stone buildings. Look like they could have been built centuries ago. And in the buildings that they took down, they tell us those buildings were plaster. I was like, well, that doesn't really make a lot of sense of why you would build this one giant golden statue. If the approach was to go with plaster and a facade, then you do all facade, right?
It sounds like maybe they were using some pre-existing buildings.
That's the belief.
Is that
I
the
choose.
theory?
That is the theory, kind of going along with the mud flood theory. The idea is that our founders, a lot of our buildings, the Capitol buildings, that you go inside and it says founded, 1793 or founded this date or that date, that these buildings weren't actually built, that they were found. And that's why they use the term founded. Instead of established or built or erected, they say founded. And the idea is that somehow, it may be just by luck, or maybe somebody had a map of knowing where to look, but that they came across these spots and dug them up and renovated them, and then threw a big World's Fair to be like, showcasing, look at our amazing civilization. And what I find the most curious thing about that, if that theory is true, a lot of these spots where they had the World's Fairs, like Chicago is built. Chicago was inhabited long before it was supposedly Chicago. It was a major Native American settlement. So if there was stuff there already, then that means the entire history that we've been told about colonization is false, But there's a lot that seems to support that. There's old maps from the 14 and 1500s that show the interior of the United States, that show castles and like monumental buildings built deep inland in places that were supposedly not settled yet. The drawings perfectly at the right spot for cities that aren't cities yet, And it's like, well, why
How
did they
does that
happen?
fit in with Native American history then?
Well, because if they,
Like these settlements came before the Native Americans, and the Native Americans.
or the story we're told about Native Americans might not be entirely true of what went down, of what happened when they got here. It could be that the Native Americans themselves were inhabiting something built by not themselves. The people we know as the ancient Egyptians do not claim to have built the pyramids. They claim to have found the pyramids and inhabited them. But so, maybe the Native Americans were inhabiting what ruins were still above ground. Maybe they built.
Maybe none of it was above ground at the time.
Yeah, maybe none of it was above ground. But curious if there were ruins there for Chicago to have been a major Native American settlement and the natives to not be aware of everything that would have been underneath there. And then, European civilization comes along and puts a big city right there. If assuming that there was stuff or buildings already there, it would seem like it's not likely that both the natives and the Americans would have a settlement there, and the natives would have missed that detail. So, and some of the history we're told about them, like the Iroquois supposedly had their confederation there in the Northeast. For all intents and purposes, when you hear how the Iroquois Confederation was designed, that was a republic. It wasn't some simplistic tribal government at all.
Yeah, there's just too much that points to cover up, but it's hard to say why or where or
For me, I guess where I usually lean with this sort of conspiracy, and I do. Of course, take some of my other beliefs influence my view on this one, but I take the view that this stuff was probably deeply buried, and I think it's not pre-mud flood. I think the Greco-Roman buildings with the giant doors and that sort of thing, I think it's pre-flood, as in pre-biblical flood, and I think there was we're living in a post-deluge world that in the same way that in the times described in the Bibles and in other cultures of before this global cataclysmic flood, I think there were beings who were bigger than humans that we might call giants who inhabited the world, and maybe there were some people who worked closely with them or were their right-hand people, I think after said cataclysm, there were some people left with maps of where things used to be, and it probably took a really long time for us to make it everywhere all over the world. And, so probably not an exact science of let's say if it's time to settle the American West, if we're in Utah, if there's something there, it's like, hey, we know where it's in this general area, but it's going to take us a minute to find it unless it jumps right out at you. And then going along with the world fairs too, almost every city that had these major world fairs, every major American city, really every major world city that's historic and has these beautiful, ornate old buildings, experienced fires or disasters that supposedly destroyed a lot of the buildings. Destroyed buildings made of stone and marble. Fires.
Stone doesn't burn.
It did in the 1800s. It did then. It caused stone buildings to collapse, and that it goes along with what they claim is what's called the Great Reset of the 1800s. That there was some sort of event with mixing in mud floods, the Great Fires, the San Francisco Fire, the Chicago Fire, mysterious depopulations and plagues, all to say that what was going on was that world powers were trying to reset the world to tell a different narrative of erasing the old one.
Well, speaking of giant skeletons, I found this. Let's see if I can blow it up.
It's down in South America. How do you? I've heard that one pronounced Ollantaytambo, an Inca structure with giant steps. Each step bigger than a person.
Anyways, there we go. These supposed skeletal remains, unearthed and documented in historical records, along with the historical accounts of Goliath, who had 3 brothers as big as he, OG King of Bashan, who was 13.5 feet long, Maximus Thrax, and a Caesar of Rome. So it shows these skeletons. There's a 15-foot one in southeast Turkey. Maximus Thrax, which was a Caesar of Rome, was 8'6". Goliath was 10'6". OG King of Bashan was 12 foot. And then there's other various skeletons that were found of 19 foot 6 inches, 23 foot, 25 foot 6 inches, and 36 feet.
See a 23 foot tall skeleton found in France in 1456 beside a river. 25 foot tall one found in France in 1613 near the castle of Chaumont. Nearly a complete skeleton. 36 foot tall skeleton supposedly found in 650 BC. The Carthaginians unearthed 2 this size, an earthquake. It's kind of broken off, but around the Bosphorus area. I mean, there's a lot of stories we talked about that in previous episodes too, of the supposed redheaded giants. You know, the Native Americans supposedly believed that the Europeans explorers were their gods returning because they saw big redheads on board. I mean, I think mostly because they saw redheads in general.
Yeah.
But there's stories of redheaded giants, and this monument with these giant steps built, inhabited by the Inca. And it says the Inca moved there right before the Spanish arrived. Whoever built that, those steps are not for people.
No, those are huge. Those are massive. The step itself looks like it's at least 12 to 15 feet tall, each step.
But if there was once a time when there were 25 foot, 36 foot people walking around.
36 foot, that'd be a nice little staircase.
Then they could walk that, yeah. And they could probably build something like that.
They could build all these structures we're talking about with these giants.
The precision part, that's where the intelligence would come in. But the ability
brute to muscle, yeah.
Exactly. The brute strength.
20-ton stones or 100-ton stones.
Then it's an easily answerable question of like, oh yeah, of course that's who moved it. But, the precision, that just comes down to their intelligence. But, it just makes me wonder, because I am a believer that there were once giants that walked the earth. And I think we have plenty of historical account to show that people made war with these so-called giants. There's biblical accounts of it, of spots where they are basically commanded to wipe them out. And I just wonder, are our elites, are Western elites, are the Freemasons, or the Western elites, are they on the side of the giants? Are they on the side of trying to bring back giants? Or are they on the side of, we wiped out the giants and we're trying to keep some hidden evil away from humanity that humanity doesn't understand?
Yeah, it's
I want it to be the fairy
duality
tale
in my own brain of is it nefarious or
is it good? Or is it for my own good?
Is it for our own good?
Yeah. Are you hiding things from us for our own good? Or is that just...
Or was it both? Maybe it was just a fucking misunderstanding at one point, and...
I'm inclined to believe that anyone who deceives us is not doing it for our own good, and that our default of even thinking that is just our Pentagon programming from all the Hollywood movies of like, oh no, they spy on us to save us,
Yeah.
Like,
I don't know.
We've got we all have our own personal NSA angel.
Oh, I found something on Tartaria the other day. In this atlas is marked Antarctica 250 years before its discovery and is present Tartary, but there's nothing unusual. So on old maps, In this atlas, a continent is marked at the North Pole with rivers and signatures. This continent is Hyperborea, which according to official scientists is a fiction as well as Tartaria. Yandex did not bother with Photoshop and simply hid almost the entire Arctic Ocean in their maps. If you type in these coordinates, 69 degrees, 1 minute, 36 seconds, 0.19, and 179 degrees, 59 minutes, 48.84 seconds in Yandex maps and look slightly northwards, you will see that the image of North Pole is missing on a large scale. I'd be interested in seeing what Hyperborea comes up with your all-knowing.
So that's
AI.
let's see. From what I've seen about that is it claims that the North Pole is where the lands of Eden supposedly are, because like in the map descriptions where it shows this land split by 4 rivers,
Yeah.
that matches the description of Eden in the Bible, at least, of the 4 rivers going out in 4 directions and
So
all of
Eden
that.
was the center of the known world
of and
at the time.
and if you take the flat Earth biblical cosmology sort of view, not only the center, it's the center of the world and a perfect spot for people to spread out to all the corners of the world from there. But then that doesn't fit the out of Africa hypothesis,
No, well, yeah, there's always a contradiction.
So it was depicted as a utopian land of eternal spring, this Hyperborea. It means beyond Boreas, referring to the god of the north wind. A utopian land of eternal spring where a blessed, peaceful people lived under the favor of Apollo. Herodotus placed them between mythical peoples like Arimaspi and Griffins, possibly in northeastern Asia, but with a skeptical tone. Pliny the Elder described chronic daylight cycles. That seems to fit with the North Pole.
Yeah.
Extreme longevity and direct offerings sent annually from Hyperborea to sacred Greek sites like Delphi and Delos. Could that be Atlantis?
Oh, maybe. Well, it never. There's not really any text that refers to where Atlantis is. It was just
Right.
that it was land at one point,
And circular.
Now it's underwater.
Right, well, we got the circular description of rings within rings,
The real question is there a pyramid there?
Yeah. Let's see. We got, for old maps, often placed Hyperborea as a mysterious Arctic continent, unknown northern land. And then Mercator's 1595 inset, his famous 1569 world map and 1595 revision, while vividly depict a circular Arctic continent. At the center lies the mythical Rupus Nigra, a magnetic black rock with oceans flowing into it in a whirlpool-like abyss. I think that's there, personally. We've talked about that in previous episodes.
Yeah, you're the.
I'm a big flat earther on that, and I think, but I think that's there because they blot out the North Pole on our maps, and it looks, and we're not allowed to go there either. So I think there is a whirlpool there. I think we live inside of a torus. So I shouldn't say I'm a flat earther then. I'm a torus earther. I think we live in a torus. And the North Pole would just be where it's
circulating through.
Yeah, cycling in on itself.
Maybe there is a Middle Earth in the center of that torus.
Could be in our Earth. And maybe that's where Eden is. Maybe that's where we were cast out of, So, according to ChatGPT, it was this spot that map makers in the 16th and 17th century just enjoyed drawing on their maps for artistic purposes, and they, I guess we're supposed to believe Mercator artistically added in a magnetic black rock with oceans flowing into it and a whirlpool-like abyss.
ChatGPT is trying to convince you that hundreds of people, or at least tens of people that drew these maps, all had the same artistic vision at the same time.
Yeah, they just thought it was a cool thing to do to just, put a continent that doesn't exist.
Oh yeah, that guy drew it on his map, so I'll draw it on mine.
I'll put it there too.
No, come on.
it doesn't make sense, especially when you consider that the maps were used for navigation.
Yeah. Anybody that was a cartographer was a traveler.
Right. So I'm not going to put maybe you put a bird on there. That's for artistic addition. A bird here, a little sea dragon there, maybe, but not a continent, not a landmass, not a mountain, unless there's something there. So right before I looked that up, I was looking to see. I want to see if I put it here. I wanted to see if ChatGPT could help me find some of the maps that seem to show settlements and monumental buildings in the Americas.
Of Tartarian civilization?
It kept it on the Tartaria thread. I wasn't actually asking it to do that. I just wanted to show buildings that were supposedly built, later when the land was settled, already being shown on maps.
What do you mean? Pre-flood?
Or showing buildings that I would think are pre-flood buildings that they then later unearthed
Claimed
and
that they founded?
Mm-hmm.
Well, all of them, right? There was a bunch of antique maps that came up for Tartaria, like a bunch of maps that were sold at auction that I thought was interesting. It's hard for me to figure out what's on the map, but
I'd have to do more digging to find the maps that are going to show like the castles and monuments. But, there's several that seem to show the landmass just different than it is today, with water and things being in different locations. There's some maps that show California as being completely separate from the U.S. It just seems to support the idea that the world may have looked drastically different not that long ago, not millions of years ago, or as scientists would have us believe, or tens of thousands of years ago as they would have us believe, but maybe just a few centuries ago there were much larger lakes or places underwater that aren't today. I saw one that showed the Great Salt Lake as much larger. Well, apparently there's like maps from as recent as 1850 that show an expansive Great Salt Lake, significantly larger than modern outlines. Seems to support that, like, hey, things even right back then were very different. So an interesting thing, not good news for any of us, but the major equity firms, BlackRock and Blackstone, which those are two of the major ones, which their very names will go kind of hand in hand with the Saturn worship, BlackRock and Blackstone, and it kind of goes hand in hand with the
cult.
Yeah, exactly, the Black Cube. Well, they are now, for the first time ever, these big private equity firms who own just about everything in America are buying public utility companies. They're buying power companies now.
Oh, fuck.
I know. That's what everybody should say, and nobody should want them to buy a power company, because I'm sure that once they buy up all the power companies and they have a monopoly on that, I'm sure our prices will go down. Right? That's what happens when you get a monopoly. That's the whole point of a monopoly, is so you can give everybody the most affordable price possible.
Jesus Christ, man.
So, yeah, that'll be a fun one. And
well, we're going to have to figure out perpetual energy devices to make our own energy.
We're going to need it. We're going to need it. But that one we won't share on the show because I like life. So I'm a big fan of living. But yeah, as we were just talking about the map and what's drawn there at the top, the Black Mountain, or the Black Mountain with the water swirling around it. These companies are named after the reference to this mythical magnetic mountain at the North Pole, and I think all of that is tied right into Saturn worship and just their knowledge of stuff that they don't want to let us in.
Why don't you wet our whistle into the Black Cube cult of bankers and Saturn worshipers?
So, and I don't want to make it sound more nefarious than I really believe or from what I've seen here. And so even though I feel like cult has a negative connotation, from everything I could find the most about it, this Saturn worship seems to be worship, people trying to focus their energy on the material, the physical, here, life on Earth, or their control and their dominance of Earth, if you will. Because Saturn, if you go back to Greek mythology and Roman mythology, he's the god of time. He's Kronos. He is he's the one who comes for the harvest. And I did a whole deep dive looking into them and trying to go back as far as I could, because what it all started with was BlackRock, and Blackstone, and just this focus that there seems to be out there on a black cube. Many people might be familiar with the big cube in Mecca, and at a lot of financial centers, Shanghai, New York, Chicago, there ends up being a black cube monument or art piece put up outside somewhere. So I said, okay, I wanted to go back and figure out, where does this come from? And Saturn is also associated with the esoteric, the black sun. So that's also associated with Saturn. But I went to ChatGPT and I said I wanted to look at the cult of Saturn and try to follow it as far as I can, follow it all the way back and see how it could have continued into the modern day. And at the earliest time, in Roman times, the cult of Saturn, they were the priest in charge of the empire's treasury. So probably some pretty important folks back then. But they were in charge of the treasury. So when an emperor or anybody needed to get money out of the treasury, you went through the priest of Saturn. If you wanted to put money in the treasury, you went through the priest of Saturn. And that started that way because he's the god of the harvest. And before money, when it was just the barter system, the crops were money, and these priests were in charge of keeping the crops. They kept the grain supply, and they kept the treasury. So they were both the guardians of the wealth and, the food, which in a way is wealth. But when the empire went away, I guess before I get too lost there, I want to just point out some of the symbols of the cult of Saturn that they used even back then. Black robes is what the cult of Saturn would wear. So when the Roman Empire went away, they didn't go away. They stayed. And, by the time the Roman Empire was going away, and by the time that Christianity came along, they were still in charge of the treasury. Somebody still had to run the treasury. So they might be Christian now, but they're still running the treasury. And they still had very high positions in government. So black robes is what they would wear. And I think in today's world, we still see officials wear black robes. Usually judges, the people who decide, still end up wearing black robes.
Executioners
wear black robes, yeah.
Sith Lords wear black robes.
Yeah. Okay. So, and just some of the symbols that tie directly back to them. We got, of course, the Kaaba in Mecca, the big black cube there. There's a black cube in New York City. It's a public art piece right next to the UN with no plaque explaining its, why it's there. And I want to get an image of that. The black cube of Dag Hammarskjöld. It's like a
Marskjold.
Yeah, who are that? Norse or Danish or something?
Yeah, it looks Norwegian or maybe Icelandic.
I feel like I've seen that before on TV and that sort of thing. Have you ever seen that one?
Yeah, it's probably in a movie somewhere.
And it's just this black cube, looks like an art piece.
It's not as grandiose as I was expecting it to be.
But they have other ones in other major cities, usually just called a modernist sculpture. Corporate plazas like to do it as well. But the other things that, are part of our modern world that come directly from the cult of Saturn, the gavel, that was something they used in Rome. That was the priest of Saturn used the gavel and the bench, and it was part of their rituals of binding. So even
so like giving somebody a loan on grain, it would be a binding agreement when they hit the gavel?
Yep, exactly.
Huh.
And this one I didn't feel like was the best thing to really stick, because it's like, well, we got to have some sort of cycles, but the way our modern fiscal years and fiscal quarters are designed, that comes directly from them as well, because they used to design the harvest cycles to tell people when to plant, when to reap, and everything like that. They would set it all up. So in the same way, they've set up our financial system of when to invest, when to look for your investment. It's all based on the quarter system, the fiscal quarter system. And the motif of Saturn's rings, we can see that in a lot of corporate elite institutions. So Boeing's logo, NASA's mission patches has Saturn's rings. Energy and telecom companies, AT&T's old globe with rings as a little nod to Saturn. Film and media logos with the orbital rings. A lot of these big companies seem to like to just do a little nod to Saturn, because the Earth doesn't have rings. Most planets don't even supposedly have rings that they show us, but Saturn does.
Jupiter does.
Jupiter, but
It has a very thin. There's a ring,
but not a real visible one.
No.
Yeah. So I mean, anytime they're doing that for space, it's like it's not so much a reference to space as it is just a reference to Saturn.
Well, you can see the rings with your naked eye if you look hard enough.
For Jupiter,
for
Saturn, right?
Yeah.
But that's what I mean when they show that, and I feel like they usually pitch it as just like, oh, it's space, but it's like usually it's not an artistic it's not an artistic nod to space, more so as it's an artistic nod to Saturn.
Yeah.
And so even in today's world, most economic summits, policy rollouts tend to line up with Saturn ingresses or Jupiter-Saturn conjunctions. So as they line up with astrological events associated with Saturn. And I don't know if you've ever heard it. I heard a saying once a long time ago of somebody saying that, millionaires study finance, but billionaires study astrology, where the one facet that does seem to exist amongst the elites in the world is the people at the very top. They're into all the religious the mumbo jumbo out there. They're into astrology. They're into the esoteric. They're into studying all of that regular people tend to dismiss. So
they've got time to do it. I mean, number one.
Well, but I don't. That's
number two. Maybe they've got some more inside information that
being rich doesn't mean you got more time. A lot of times they're busy, and like even I'll use a president as an example. Reagan. He was famous for he wouldn't do anything without running it by his astrologer first.
Uh-huh.
When I hear that, I feel like that's something that they teach us. Oh, that was just a long time ago. That was in the Middle Ages. That was the Dark Ages when kings and queens and the leaders of countries were going to astrologers and asking for omens, and looking to the stars and that sort of thing to decide what they're going to do or what not to do. But no, that's not the Dark Ages. That's 2025 that they're still doing that.
What's the meaning of the conjunction of Saturn and Jupiter then? Behind the billionaires and bankers' thinkings. Why does it coincide, or what is the mythology behind the coincidence?
From my understanding, it's just when these alignments happen, whatever the raw power associated with Saturn is and the raw power associated with Jupiter, it's when these alignments happen, that energy is more available to us. So it's like an energy that should always
supposedly
be there.
Jupiter's the ruler of the celestial beings, and Saturn's the banker or the keeper of time. So, but why is it when the planets are in alignment that all of these financial things are happening? Could it be because of the astrological superstition? Is it the superstition that is happening, or is there actual power going on, or are they,
Well, I think it's the superstition.
Are
for
they
one.
intentionally making it like that nowadays because it's always been that way?
I think it's the continuity. Yeah, the continuity. You can make that argument, but I think the superstition is the biggest one. So by timing a financial reset, a new currency, banking system reform, etc., with a Saturn conjunction, the action then can seem to be ordained by the heavens if they time it up. So that comes down to the belief of the person carrying out the action. And so I feel like with a lot of these things, it doesn't really come down to are they true or not, you know.
It's how much the person believes that it's true.
Yeah, so it doesn't matter if these things are true.
It's like the basic law of manifestation. If you truly believe it's true, you can make it happen.
When it's true, if the people running the world believe this stuff is true, the rest of us don't have to believe it either. But it's going to be real for us, you know.
If they get the power to make it.
Right, because it's real for them, so they're gonna, they make it real for us. So then there's the psychological power, unconscious imprint. Most people don't notice planetary timing, but their subconscious may respond to symbols and cycles embedded in culture. The narrative framing, if markets crashes, reforms, or resets align with cosmic events, later histories can be written as they were inevitable. The stars aligned. Then let's see, energetic occult belief, Saturn as the binder. In esoteric systems, Saturn rules contracts, restriction, and karmic cycles. Aligning a financial treaty or debt system with Saturn is believed to seal it more tightly. And then when Saturn meets Jupiter every 20 years, astrologers since Babylon saw it as a new dynastic or epic cycle. Launching financial systems here is thought to last the cycle. And then Saturn returns 30 years, a favorite for restructuring institutions if you destroy the old scaffolding and rebuild. So yeah, I don't think we can say, because you do the whole chicken or the egg argument of, well, is there any power to these alignments? And you could look at history and say, does anything happen on these dates? Well, and there's lots of events that happen, but the events probably happen on those dates because people made it happen on those dates, So that's why I just said the whole, as long as they believe it, there's power to it.
What if the Great Conjunction, or there's a complete planetary alignment or something of that nature, or even the exoplanets align somehow, and that's what creates a cataclysm.
Yeah.
And maybe there is a timer on this cataclysm, and there's a very physical reason to that.
Yeah. I could easily. That's been the view that I lean into the most. That there's even with the Mayan calendar, that there's
specific
something
body
happening.
that is an exoplanet and only enters our solar system once every 7,000 years.
What the idea? What planet Nibiru? You've heard that one, I'm sure. This planet that only comes around every once in a while.
Yeah,
and when it does,
it creates all kinds of havoc.
Yeah,
because of the gravitational force. It basically turns us into a 3-body problem.
So another view I've always taken with the astronomy and people who base things on it is there's clearly something up there. If the moon can have an effect on the tides on this planet, then surely the moon has an effect on us, and that everything up there must have an effect. So if there are those who have a better understanding of how the different planets affect us as they move through their cycles, then you can take more advantage of it. If you understand that, when Saturn's in this position, it's having this effect on humanity, making them more susceptible to XYZ or more receptive to XYZ, then you can take advantage of it, if you understand how it's influencing the people.
Like the stock market?
Yeah. 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 And more than that, like what people, I'm sure you've heard the saying of people say, like when a full moon happens, it changes people's behavior and that sort of thing. If these different planetary alignments, if these different astronomical alignments have real consequences for how they affect us physically, then anybody with a good understanding of that can totally manipulate it,
I feel like I should go back to school and study the stock market and astrology now.
Yeah. You and me both. I want to understand it to know exactly when to invest. I was like, tell me when is the next alignment for me to invest so I can be a billionaire. I need to know when that alignment of Saturn is coming, because I want to get my investment in on the right time. And I don't know, as wild as it sounds to me, it somehow makes sense that it could be this simple to life, that like there's a flow of energy and vibration constantly moving, a cycle, if all things should move in cycles. If as above, so below, everything we observe happens in cycles. Nature happens in cycles throughout the year, winter, spring, summer, fall, same thing over and over again. And I think the Earth on a geological time scale probably happens in cycles, probably cycles so long that it's hard for us as humans to really get a good read on them. But if everything is happening in cycles like that, then it would make sense that the proper way to do things is to take your action at the right moment in the cycle. You don't want to plant your seeds in the winter unless that's a crop that's supposed to be planted in the winter.
Well, everybody says that everything's circular,
Right.
even time.
Right, but still, if it is circular, if everything's cyclical, right,
Then there's absolutely something that's going to happen periodically.
And there's a time that's going to be more ripe to do one thing than something else. And so even though I feel like astrology gets just like brushed off by most people, it's like that would seem to add like a scientific reason where they're on to something, you know? If everything's cyclical,
Yeah.
then there is a time where one person, you know, people, hey, if you're born under this sign, here's your certain alignment, here's your set resonance frequency, this is the, you know, what frequency you're resonating to and how these different frequencies affect you. So when things are in a certain alignment, maybe you are more receptive to love, or you are more lucky, or more bad things coming your way, you know? I want to understand it so I know when to watch out for the bad that's heading my way.
That's probably why the Anunnaki engineered us to have shorter lifespans.
So we couldn't figure it out.
So we couldn't figure out the actual cyclical reverberations.
That would make sense.
Did we talk about that? How the human genome, I think it was the second chromosome, was engineered for us to have a shorter lifespan. And there's Bible passages talking about our lifespan being shortened. Right.
You know, as we're kind of dancing around the whole precession of the equinox as we talk about astrology for regular people in our lifespan, but you zoom out on the proposed or theoretical cycle for the Earth is the precession of the equinox as the Earth and the sun moves through all of those constellations.
Yeah.
You know, and down the road, I would love to talk about the theories all surrounding that and how human history is really just the precession of the equinox happening. You know, major religious events, major changes, all coinciding with that. That one I always found to be pretty interesting because, you know, supposedly we're entering a new age or have entered a new age recently with the age of Aquarius. Well, and if you take the hypothesis of these other creatures, as the Sumerians referred to them, the Anunnaki, the Bible would probably refer to them as fallen angels or whatever. If they created us, and especially if they created us in their image to work for them, then you would snip certain strengths to make sure that we can never be as strong as them. And if they did do that, if that really is our origin, then I can understand why humanity would have been pitted against them. You know, if we were created to be a slave race, basically, and then rebellion is understandable. You know, and man, that is I almost really don't like taking the alien view that, these aliens came and made us, and we were just made to mine gold for them. Because if that's what happened, and we killed them, if they came from somewhere else to Earth and then made us, unless they were a dying out civilization, we better hope they were dying out on wherever their home planet was. Because otherwise, they're going to come back.
Yeah. So the fact that something came along and modified our genes, that put telomere caps on our second chromosome about the time that Sumerian tablets said that we were put here or created by another race, and
I guess, wouldn't it be safe to assume,
and it all lines up biblically, and it all lines up somehow. I mean, yeah, you would hope that alien race didn't survive,
right? Well, either
or what
if that's true,
what are the other scenarios?
Maybe that's why we've got so many holes in our history, and we have this Tartarian theory and mud flood theory. Maybe the real theory is that every once in a while we've got to fight for our lives when they come back and try to take over again.
Oh, fuck. Maybe that's what the actual cataclysm is.
Yeah, that could be a cataclysmic event, you know. But it would seem like if that's what was,
Ra finally says, you know what, fuck these guys again. I'm going to go
we're taking it back.
stomp on their civilization for a minute and we fight back.
Or maybe they're
we
here already.
lose.
Maybe they're here already, and they cut us down to size every time we get strong enough to threaten them again.
Oh, that's very fair.
And then they just sit back and watch while we do it all again. You know, especially if the pyramids are generating some sort of energy that they can, you know, they say the pyramid sites all across the world are UFO centers. So they're like, hey, we got our charging station. When we fly by, we charge up, and don't worry about the humans.
Yeah, well, maybe we're just a truck stop for the
Exactly.
fucking intergalactic truck stop.
We're just a little truck stop, and as long as we don't get in the way, then they don't have to send in pest control.
Or maybe the Anunnaki's ant farm.
I hope not. I hope it's not a truck stop, because if so, then that means we're
very
just
nefarious
pests.
things are happening in the shower.
Yeah, and we're just pests who get in the way every once in a while. You know, you gotta send out pest control to get the gas station working again.
Jeez.
But that's I do find that one fascinating, because it seems like there's enough evidence that there were definitely non-human intelligent beings living with us in the past. And then that just leaves the big questions of what happened to them. Did they leave? Did we kill them? Or did they die out? Did they become, are we them? Did we become them? I'm sure you've seen some of the hypotheses that say they came here and made us as a hybrid between creatures that were already living on this planet
Right.
and their DNA, so that their species would not die but live on. And that's probably like the most gentle version of all the options that I've heard.
That it was so that their bloodline could live on somehow.
Yeah, that's the most peaceful version I've heard, you know, but the Sumerian version is, no, we're made as slaves for gold. And in that version, it seems likely that we would rebel.
Yeah, and it also seems likely that somebody's going to come back eventually.
Maybe. But
Because if we were
if
a
that's the
slavery
case,
settlement in the universe that somebody else was overlooking, and the guy that brought us here to make slaves was just fucking Joe Schmo of the hierarchy of the greater universe.
wouldn't they be back already, though? It's been a while
It doesn't.
since Sumeria.
Maybe they're just waiting to see what we do. Maybe
That's
the
a long
experiment
wait.
is not over.
That's a long, long wait, you know? But if,
Or maybe the resource isn't gold. Maybe the resource is water.
right, or I personally, I don't think the resource is physical at all. And I think it's probably more likely that the Sumerian texts are describing beings from a higher dimension creating us. Probably still to mine something.
To mine our ether.
But not where it's not. We're not mining in the sense. I think by the toil that is our life, every human's life, all the troubles and trials and that they have to overcome and face. I think that is the mining we're doing.
I think they want our adrenochrome.
You think so?
Yeah.
Well, then they should want us scared more often and harvest.
It's manufactured in extreme fits of terror.
Well, and those theories I find
Right
horrifying.
before you're murdered.
I find that
usually.
those are horrifying theories, because that means it's just a big farm and they're just maintaining the population.
Or cattle.
Yeah, they're just maintaining the population high enough so that they can skim some off and we never notice.
You can't do that with a small farm, otherwise we start to catch on.
We'd all freak out, you know? You can't
there's
just...
no adrenochrome left because you've already used it all in your brain.
Right, you don't walk right into the middle of the field and shoot the cow in the head. All the other cows would see that. And they're gonna run.
Yeah.
You know, you lead them in a line, and and the other cows are still out munching on grass, saying, "That's what a pretty day." Yeah, I hope not that one. But between me and my dad, that's one that me and him talked about a long time ago. Of saying, "What if the War of the Worlds already happened, and we lost, and that this is just a big farm, and that's where the holes in history are? Is that that they let the population grow and grow and grow." And then that every once in a while, maybe once a century,
They cull a few of us.
they come in for harvest. Maybe every few hundred years or so, you come in for a harvest. Maybe it takes 1,000 years. You have to let things build up, let humanity really expand, and then
They harvest everything.
or they not everything, but
or most everything.
most of us. And then, then when we talked about it, we were saying, as part of the theory, we were saying, okay, our elites are good guys. That's why they want to get the population down, because they know that there's an arbitrary number out there somewhere, and as soon as the population hits it, harvest time. So they want us to, hey, have less babies. Don't do that, but that all interesting ones. At the end of the day, none of them are worth worrying about, because, if they're going to come down and harvest our brains, they're going to come down and harvest our brains. Not really much we can do about that.
On that note,
right.
Thanks for listening, guys. This is Denver Theory Lab. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook. Email us at denvertheorylab@gmail.com. You can also make donations to help support us at PayPal at Denver Theory Lab. If you've got any ideas or suggestions, give us a call. Bye.
Till next time.